We'll begin the public hearing at 6:04 p.m., Tuesday, May the 15th, 2012. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Councilor Striplin? Here. Councilor Wood? Here. Councilor Brown? Here. Councilor Miller? Here. Councilor Reniger?
Here.
Councilor Bowles? Councilor Fank? Here.
Roll has been called. We'll call the meeting to order. There are two items on our public hearing agenda. The first item is a resolution to declare various wooded lots to be a public nuisance and ordering their abatement per Title 11, Chapter 67 of the Code of Alabama, 1975, as amended. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this resolution? In favor of the resolution, anyone? Is there anyone who would like to speak against this resolution? Yes, ma'am, if you'll come forward, please. Please state your name and your address at the microphone, if you will.
That this house is at 604 Sunset Drive.
There you go. That's quite all right.
That's okay.
It's confusing sometimes.
Okay, I'm Julie Rushton. I own a house at 604 Sunset Drive, and I received a letter saying something about weeds and garbage in January, and I cleaned up. In the only weeds I have are the monkey grass that grows around by the street, but it was to keep runoff. I have periwinkle, wandering Jew at the back of my house. I have some Asiatic jasmine on the side. And because we had a very warm winter, the Asiatic jasmine just takes over, and I really don't know what the tall weeds is talking about. I don't have tall weeds. I have ground covers. So if the city of Prattville does not allow ground covers, you need to put that somewhere, that we are not allowed to have ground covers. I have no grass. Several years back, ants attacked my neighbor's yard, killed his grass. They came to my yard, killed my grass. Since then, there has been no grass growing in my yard, and the neighbor next door has very little. I don't think it has even ever grown back in his yard. But ground cover is the only thing unless you have dirt. And I have some ground cover, but since then I have had it all cut down. I have put a new roof on my house, and I have plants around my house. And I don't know what, I got another letter saying it was not, about your house was overgrown. It didn't say about the weeds and garbage. So I thought I had cleaned it up. And in March, this one's dated in March, and it said something about overgrown. I was getting a new roof put on, but I had to have some plants, a tree and a big shrub that were over my house. I was going to remove it, and I was already doing it myself as I could. But apparently it was not fast enough. But evidently he didn't see that all my azaleas across the front had done been cut back and everything because I was doing it myself as I went. I had a man come, though, because I couldn't get the big tree and the shrubs. So I just had him to cut in the back. There were 3 shrubs, in which are really flowering shrubs, which lots of people have. But I've lived in that house since 1967, and it has very rich soil because I'm a planter. And anyway, I had a man come, and he told me it would be $900 for a day to get up this, to remove these trees. They weren't trees; they were actually big shrubs. He said $900 a day, and I said, well, I don't know that I have any choice because the roofers, they would interfere with the roofers, and I don't want them to get hurt doing that. And so he came, but he only charged me $600, and I had given copies of where I have had work done in my yards. I gave them to the city clerk, and she made copies. And I took pictures of my yard. I have The weeds, I've cut periwinkle, pulled up periwinkle, but that's a plant you buy. It's a flower. And it may grow, but it drops over and grows on. That's why it does that. But as far as weeds, I don't have weeds. And I surely don't want snakes and rats. I don't live where snakes do. I'm scared of snakes. So, and there's a field. Well, those field is right behind the house. I had 3 boys that grew up there. And there are always snakes in that woods, on the area. And I can't control what comes out of the field. In the fall, there was always field mice coming from but I can't control them, but I put out poison in my little shed or something. And I don't know what else, the man.
Ms. Rushton, what we will do is we'll ask our code enforcement officer to come out and just take a look at all this good work that you've been doing, and I'm sure it will comply, and you won't hear anything more from the city if you have complied.
But I'd like to know what the weeds is what he's talking. But okay.
But if you would like to have a first-hand answer, we have our city planner. The code enforcement officer reports to him. Joel, would you see if you could address Ms. Rushton's concerns?
Yes, ma'am. Make sure I get it on the mic. So, okay, thank you. Yes, sir. We show that Ms. Rushton's property has been cut to the point that it meets city ordinance. So there won't be any more action in this case. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you being here with us tonight. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak in opposition to this resolution? Seeing none, we'll move on to the second item in our agenda is an appeal by Lunella D. Smith regarding dilapidated structure at 243 West 6th Street. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this appeal? Mr. Smith.
Good evening.
Byron, I know who you are, but if you'll just introduce yourself and give your address.
I'm about to. I am Myron Smith, forever resident of Prattville. This is my 90-year-old mother, Law Neal. Law Neal is the owner of the property at 6th Street that is the substance of the appeal hearing that we're here for. I'm going to ask her to just sit down. She gets a little tired. Just sit there, Mother. Council, there has been notice given to Law Neal Smith that a house at 243 West 6th Street is unsafe. The state code, Title 1153B3, requires that the unsafe condition of the building is to be stated in notices to the owners so that owners can correct whatever unsafe conditions might be alleged to be present on the property. None of the notices that have been received by Law Neal Smith contain any description of any unsafe condition at the address of this property. The notice that the property is unsafe does not meet the requirements of the state statute that's recited in the notice. So what we have here is a deficient notice because it simply does not address any public safety issues relating to this property. It does not afford the owner an opportunity to consider correcting the alleged unsafe conditions because they're not specified. So that's the core of the basis for the appeal. Now there are some other minor issues, such as the fact that this was a house, it had a kitchen fire, all the windows and doors are completely boarded up. There's no access to the house, and you really got to be a burglar or a demolition expert to get into a position where you can hurt yourself at this property. So there we are.
Joel, would you like to come forward, please? Let's see if we can work this out.
Smith,
Yes.
make sure I get it on the mic. If you don't
Yes,
mind.
yes.
All right.
You've heard
And I
Mr.
have
Smith's
I have an extra
concerns.
copy of the statutes that I can give to your code enforcement department.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're familiar with the statute. We'd be more than happy to work with Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, to see if there's some resolution. Because the notice that was sent to Mr. Smith says that it's not required that the property be demolished. It's just required to be brought back into code compliance. And the code is basically the minimum housing code under the international code. And we'll be glad to work with the Smiths to get the house back in that condition. As Mr. Smith noted, there was a fire at this structure. In fact, I think there might have been 2 fires. I'm not sure. And it is not habitable following those fires. So we would need to have that corrected.
It is not. He is correct. It's not a habitable structure. It's been not been offered as a habitable structure. It's only fit for storage, a storage building. We have no structural damage. We've got great interior damage due to kitchen fire. It's just simply not financially feasible to restore it to rental property condition. But as far as the structure itself goes, it's sound. We got interior fire damage, and the order says tear it down. It doesn't say fix it.
Okay.
There's no option stated and no unsafe condition stated, but more than willing to work with
The uniform
department and try to
code.
resolve.
The uniform code, Joel, does it specify what has to be done to meet the standard?
Yes, sir. It's just that is a minimum housing code, and it requires just the minimum facilities. In fact, if you were to read that code, you would look and probably think that that's probably less than you would expect somebody to require in a house, but it is just a basic minimum code requiring such things as a working bathroom. If it's a rental house, it has to have some type of alarm in it for smoke detection, carbon monoxide, basic facilities like running water and the like. But again, we'll be glad to work with the Smiths to get that in order. We are not at a point where our budget in the planning department would allow us to present this to you to have it torn down, but we're building that case to move in that direction. So there's plenty of opportunity to correct the structure. And as Mr. Smith said, it is probably basically sound. We've had fire damaged structures in the past. We just need to know what the direction they're hoping to head here. Where they're hoping to go with this structure. Is it going to remain like this, potentially open in a potential danger to the public, or is it going to be repaired and brought back into productive use?
We can
Go ahead.
furnish all that information to your department.
This address lies in which municipal district?
Mr. Reniger, 6 months ago, I probably could have told you that off the top of my head.
I know it doesn't lie in 5, but I just wondered whose.
It's either in District 1 or District 2, if I remember correctly.
Okay, well then I'm going to ask the counselors from District 1 and District 2 if they have anything they want to say about this particular appeal. Councilor
I
Wood.
just have a question for the attorney.
Yes, sir.
City attorney. Thank you. Mr. McDowell, based on what Mr. Smith has stated here, are our notices being sent out to homeowners, or are they appropriate for what we are trying to accomplish here? The notices that the city is sending?
In the past, I believe they are. I'll certainly have to look at what Myron, and I jotted down what he said.
Before I can even think about coming any further, I want to make sure that these notices are appropriate. I don't know if all of the things that is in that code needs to spell out, or if just the letters of the code, the numbers of the code are appropriate, and that's what I want you to find out for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
May I make one comment?
By all means, go ahead.
This will be very brief, less than 30 seconds. This statute is a very special statute that your ordinance is based on. It's a statute which allows municipalities to destroy private property under certain notice conditions and certain facts. This allows a municipality to deprive a private property owner of property with a certain due process. The rule of interpretation is strict compliance with the statute if you're going to use it. I will discuss the nuts and bolts of this notice with your city attorney and explain to him the deficiencies that are in your present form so that that can be improved upon for future applications. But your form, I assert to you sincerely, does not meet the specific requirements of the statute. It can be adjusted so that it will, but at present, I'm afraid that it doesn't.
We would certainly appreciate any and all help that we could get.
Well, his father taught both of us how to practice law.
I'm sure of that.
I'm sure we can figure it out.
Councilor Strippin, do you have anything to say about this appeal?
You mentioned the current condition might only be used for storage.
Yes, sir.
Would that comply within the code of what that property is used for?
Actually, what we have here is a piece of ground that has 5 houses on it. At one time there was 6. One of them was torn down because it really was dilapidated. This one had a kitchen fire. This house is never going to be restored to be a housing unit. This house will only be a storage building. Now, it will be offered to tenants who are on adjoining properties to see if they want to pay the owner slightly more rent for use of the storage space. But it's about 1,500 square feet in the structure, and it is sound, but some nominal expenditures would need to be made, such as permanently sealing off the windows and removal of some of the fire debris from inside the house. Now, the question becomes, what code applies to that? I don't know what code applies to a storage building. If it doesn't have electricity and running water and a restroom and it's not being occupied and you're not running a business there, I don't know if there is a code for that, sir. But there may well be. You've asked a good question. I can say that this house is not going to be in the category of having any of the systems that you would want to put into a commercial building or even maybe even a private building of this size. But almost none of the many warehouses have, utility conveniences, and this house probably will never have the electricity restored to it. It's not going to have the water restored to it. Nobody's ever going to live in it again. It'll only be a storage facility, but there will have to be some modifications like a storage-type roll-up door installed to accommodate, trucks unloading and loading there, as you would in any storage building.
I'm sure that can be addressed in the negotiation
But
stage.
it is clear and undisputed this will not be a dwelling unit again. It just simply won't happen. It would be more feasible to buy a separate piece of land and a better rental location and build a new structure on a new piece of property. So this would be converted to storage only.
Any other questions from any of the other councilors that have not spoken to this issue? Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Mrs. Smith. We appreciate you being here. Look forward to working with you. That exhausts our public hearing agenda. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Fink. All those in favor of adjourning the public hearing signify by raising your right hand. The opposition by like sign. Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. We'll get right into our agenda tonight. At 6:23 p.m., May